Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Once again, it's your boy EMillio EgBar. And I want to say thank you to those of you who have taken the time out of your busy schedule to catch us here on this special presentation of the EMillio EgBar Show. Shout out to you, and you. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure you are following us on social media all over the place at the EMillio EgBar Show. For those of y'all that are looking for us, we're looking for you as well. So definitely hit us up. So as I told y'all, we are here. We got a special presentation for y'all in store. We got a special conversation that I have. And I have here joining me on the line, man. I got the homie Detroit Red joining us on the line, and we're going to touch base on a couple of conversations that we had earlier on Twitter for those of y'all who may have missed it. But with that being said, Detroit, man, welcome to the show. How's everything with you, brother?
Everything is good, man. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, man, I appreciate you taking the time out to come and join me on this show at such a short notice, man. I really do appreciate that.
No doubt, no doubt.
No doubt, man. So with that being said, I like to give this part of the conversation to the guests to give them the opportunity to, speak to the people, introduce themselves, and, just to tell the people a little bit about themselves. So with that being said, man, the floor is all yours.
Okay, cool. Well, this is Detroit Red. I've been in the game for about 30 years now, and started off doing a lot of rapping. I had an older brother who was a DJ, and he was the one that was really kind of the catalyst to all of this music that has come out, for me in terms of production and everything else down the line. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a real long journey. Music has just been in my blood for the longest, and even times that I've stepped away from it, it's always bringing me back. It's just, it's one of those things that when it's in your blood, you can't get rid of it. But I've been lately just been on the production side of things, doing a whole lot of production work for a lot of different artists and working with a lot of different other producers, compilations, and just doing a lot of different collaborations and just kind of expanding my reach. When I started out, everything was, really in your city limits, as
Mm-hmm.
far as like who you connected with and things like that. And now with technology being able to reach people all over the world, there's no limits to the things that I want to do in that regard. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really been a fun ride, and just doing as much as I can while I'm here. I had a friend of mine tell me that your gifts are meant to be shared. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my intent is to share it all before it's my time to go.
I appreciate that, man, and definitely thank you for sharing your art and what you do for your artists and the people that you work with within your community with us, man. Because over the last few weeks, since we kind of came across each other, it's been dope. Just seeing us building with one another between the two individuals and just seeing your artists and you got a bevy of talented artists that you've been working with, by the way, and everything. Definitely want to say shout out to the ladies of Intrigue. And just it
Thank
just been dope just to connect. That's the one thing you pointed out earlier when you said about when you first getting started, having been 30 years in the game. You started out in an era where it was more so about regional or more so about local within your city because you didn't have the resources or the reach that you have
right.
now. You know what I'm saying? But now with this technology and this new era that we're in, you have so much capabilities to reach out people, not even just within your hometown or your state. You can reach out people across the country, or even across the world. So, that's one of the things that is very beneficial right now. And one of the things I appreciate within this current era that we're in.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I love it. Being able to just email somebody or reach out to somebody for something. It could be something really, really small, whether it be just a guitar lick or something else like that. I'm not in a situation where I'm waiting on anybody. I mean, it's like now I can reach out to anybody any time of the day or whatnot, and from anywhere, any parts of the world,
Mm-hmm.
and they're responsive. And I think that's the bigger difference that I'm seeing more than anything is that there's a lot of people out here that are hungry and they have the desire to share their gifts just as well. So when you can find those people to help your own envision that you have, you can
Mm-hmm.
you can get so many different things done than kind of waiting for people in your own area.
I wholeheartedly agree. And let me ask you, being that you have stripes in the game, you have, 30 years worth of experience. So you've had the opportunity to see a lot of different changes, a lot of things change, come and go. So would you
Mhm.
say that it's easier now to work with people? Or would you say that it's still pretty much the same or the game is a little more cutthroat? How would you say from your 30 years of experience, what do you experience now? What do you see?
I think it's easier only because you can find like-minded people.
Hmm.
You know, um, back in the day, it was, you only had a handful of people that you could deal with, and everybody was kind of, they was on their own thing. They were trying to do things their own way,
Hmm.
and it's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it becomes that much more difficult to work with individuals when you guys don't share the same vision. It's not a bad thing. It's just what it is.
Hmm.
So when you look at where things are today, then if you and I aren't on the same page, that's cool. I mean, I can find somebody else
Hmm.
that is probably closer to the same page that I'm on, and they don't necessarily have to be, up the street from me.
Hmm.
And that's the biggest difference, and more than anything, is that you can find those like-minded individuals. I think there is still there's a different problem than it was before. There was a lot of cutthroat type of individuals, and everybody was kind of doing certain things to make their way through major record labels. The major record labels, for what they were not necessarily on the square. So when it came down to it, they were basically getting people who were thinking that if they do certain things, they would get in the good graces of those record labels and stuff like that. So there's a lot of snake stuff going on
Hmm.
back then, but I think it's a little different now. Is that there's some things about people online and things like that that you don't quite know, who they are,
That's true.
or just how real they are, or whatever those situations might be. So people still, in their own way, got to be vetted. When you're having conversations with them or working with them, things like that. But I think it's still easier. It's just a different type of navigation. So it's not like I'm paging somebody and waiting for them to page me back or whatever.
Hmm.
I can actually just send out a message, and all of the different websites and stuff like that where they actually have work for hire and things,
Hmm.
you can find what you need without necessarily having to go through all of the red tape that you used to.
Now, when you say work for hire, does that apply to like maybe like the production part of it, or even with the artistry? Like, what do you mean by work for hire?
Yeah, I mean that's from the production to the vocals to the
Okay.
songwriting, everything. So yeah, I mean, without necessarily jumping right into some of the things that we talked about before,
Hmm.
but I think when it comes down to it now, the producer stands to gain more than an artist does in this day and age, simply because they have the ability to draw on those different work for hire situations, and it also depends on their willingness to go out and seek those things, and build that rolodex of people to assist in whatever the situation might be. So I think that producers have the ability to be a true record label, in the sense of being able to pull all these resources together for the benefit of the artist.
Hmm.
But it takes commitment, it takes dedication, it takes some things that otherwise, what we've seen how that occurred is typically through contracts, and contracts that may not necessarily have been the most up and up type of contracts.
Hmm.
But when it's all said and done, as a producer, and having the know-how to be able to find the certain things that I need to find, it allows me to pick and choose the best of the best in terms of what I feel is that situation. And that, to me, is where things get a little bit better around work for hires and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
there's always situations where there's people who are, I wouldn't say over the top talented, but there are people who are talented who are actually saying to themselves, I don't necessarily have to sell a subscription or anything else like that, but I can sell my services per, project or
Hmm.
whatever that thing may call for. And once I do that, I don't have to wait for the money, or I don't have to look to get recouped through royalties or anything else like that.
Mm-hmm.
You just pay me up front. I do the job that you asked for. Everybody's satisfied. Everybody's happy. And then on top of that, you're left with a situation as a producer, or whoever you're working with, that you end up with all of the pieces of the puzzle, that
Mm-hmm.
you're in ownership of that. And unless there's something else contractually written up differently.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that, work for hires, um, I mean, everybody's done it. They just don't realize it, even back in the day. I mean, when you think about, at least for me being in Detroit and seeing Motown turn into this monster of a record label with a
Oh yeah.
plethora of artists, I mean, it was nothing for Martha Reeves to be answering the phone. It was nothing for the Vandellas to be doing backgrounds for the Temptations, or everybody was
Mm.
hands on. So when it was all said and done, that's the work for hire translation. You get what you need to deliver what you want to deliver on, and you make sure that you get the right people to do it.
Mm. That's real. That's real interesting right there, man. And definitely a whole lot to unpack right there. But one of the main things I want to get to is, the biggest conversation, or the biggest topic within a lot of the discussions that are being had right now, is the presence of AI. See, I know we discussed earlier about, the whole advancement in technology and how easy it's become now to work with people, and then we just covered the whole, topic about, work for hires, and how producers can, pretty much create their own record labels. But now what we're seeing is, we're seeing a lot of people kind of like, I don't want to say scared, but a lot of people have a lot of questions with this whole emergence of AI. A lot of people fear that with this new technology that a lot of people are getting their hands on, that they're pretty much going to quintessentially cut out the middleman when it comes to like producing music. Like, how do you feel, and what's your thoughts about the way this whole AI situation is being rolled out right now when it comes to music production?
I think it's really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those situations where it's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, but I've seen how it can benefit certain individuals depending on what it is that they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if my focus is, um, not necessarily releasing music for the sake of, releasing music for people to consume and everything else, but for it to be a profile of my capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, I can leverage an AI type of situation, maybe a vocalist or something like that. It was something I seen today that just was mind boggling. The dude was humming, and then he put the MIDI keys in his DAW, and then changed it to a vocal. Then he changed it to actual words,
Mm-hmm.
and now you got somebody that's actually singing.
Mm-hmm.
So here he is doing this. Well, now it comes back to what's the purpose? What are you actually doing this for? And if that were me, and not having access to artists and things like that, but wanting to get people to kind of hear my music, or hear what I do, then that's a good way of being able to leverage it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I can leverage this AI vocal and throw it on top, and then say, hey, this is me producing this track.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a situation where you're getting somebody a little more interested in your production, but your lyrics, your vocalists or whatever. I mean, everybody's had that situation where they've heard a beat, or they heard a vocalist and said, man, that vocalist is trash, but that beat is great, or vice versa.
Right.
That vocalist need a better production.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's seen that situation where it's a benefit to hear one over the other. So I think that's where AI can be a bit more of a benefit in using it that way. Now, where it gets a little more deceptive is, uh, there's this movie,
Mm-hmm.
um, that I seen back in the day with Al Pacino. It's called Simone,
Mm-hmm.
and basically he was on the back end of his movie delivery, as a movie producer and things like that. So he ran into this guy who basically gave him this AI, and says, this will change everything. So he basically created this actress and used her to kind of manipulate things into the movies, and he would choose the emotions, he would choose all these different things, and it was all based against his script.
Hmm.
So now all of a sudden he's a hot commodity and everything else. This artist or this actress, everybody wants her for pretty much anything and everything, and it's just AI. So they get to a point where she's actually doing a song, having a full concert and everything. So they done got the holographs and all kinds of stuff. But it really just kind of pointed to the fact that people will buy into anything.
Hmm.
If you have all of the other things, the other elements around it that make it in such a way that this is one of those things that how could you not believe it? And I
Hmm.
think that's where we are. We're in a space right now where technology can ultimately make you believe a lot of different things without any fact checking.
That's true.
So I think that's where AI can be a little bit more on the detrimental side. So
Hmm.
you have those types of situations as well. But I think no matter what the technology is, whether it's AI today or um, something else, 20, 30 years from now, if you abuse the technology, then it's going to be something detrimental.
Hmm.
If you find a way to make it work in the confines of what you're working on and how you're trying to do something that may push the needle a little bit,
Hmm.
then I think it works. I think it helps. I mean, there's so many different things about production that whether it be taught in school or no longer taught in school. How do you get more musicians? How do you get more producers and artists and things like that? I know
Hmm.
that there's Full Sail and some other schools that exist, but there's ways that AI can actually teach you how to do those things if you learn from it, or if you're just trying to put something out and you don't really care about the optics of it or anything else. It really just depends on how you choose to leverage the technology.
That is true. And, I agree with you with a lot of what you said because when I think about it, and I've had this conversation with a previous guest that was on the show just recently, I had mentioned the fact that my opinion on the whole AI situation, I'm like this, having, the fact that I'm a creator myself and I'm somebody that takes pride in the work that I put in with my own hands. So like me, I feel as though like if you have to use the AI in certain areas to help enhance what it is that you're doing, then that's cool. But as far as like you have some people that just want to take and just use a whole AI model to completely from start to finish within your process create something that you didn't do. You just hit a few keystrokes on the keyboard, and then here you are. You got a whole presentation, a whole song, a whole layout, or whatever the case may be. That's where I kind of like have a little reluctance, with the whole AI situation. But if you're using it for certain things, like how can I make a title of my song a lot better, or what key points am I missing that can help make this song go over the top? These little key ingredients that you can use to help enhance it. Then to me, I'm like, I'm okay with that. But when you're using it to totally, do 100% of the production, you pushing people out of the way. Now that's where where I have the disconnect. That how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's that's when it becomes exactly artificial. You know what I'm saying? That
Hmm.
it is truly artificial, and even now, I mean, my feelings about music in general is that, and to some extent, I've always accepted the fact that music is I'm not gonna say a young man's sport, but I'm gonna say that uh, it's the younger generation that are the tastemakers. They're the ones that really kind of determine the popularity of certain music and stuff like that. So I get it. There's
Hmm.
certain things that just aren't for me, and that's cool. I have no problems with that.
Hmm.
It's just the fact that if for me growing up and how music impacted me had everything to do with memories, events, and things like that. So like
Hmm.
there are certain songs that trigger certain memories for me because those songs were playing when something might have been happening, or whatever the case may be, or made me feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And if to me, I think that there's a way around, um, in leveraging AI. I think you lose that.
Mm-hmm.
You lose that connectivity. You know what I'm saying? Because it's only able to generate something based off of whatever information you give it.
True.
So, that being the case, it's never going to have what I like to consider a soul when it comes to the music.
Oh yeah.
So, to me, it's like you can only do so much with it. And when people are utilizing it in such a way where to me I find it to be a little more scary, in the sense is that the powers that be that have the ability to take it to a whole nother
Oh
level,
yeah.
they cut out artists, because it's like when it's all said and done, I don't have to pay, I don't have to pay a publishing company, or anybody for that matter,
Mm-hmm.
to just get music played in my restaurant, right? I don't have to worry about any of that stuff where I have to get a blanket license from ASCAP or anybody else. I can just go to my tech dude and say, hey, generate me about 30, 40 songs or whatever, saying this or doing that and having this type of feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and then we good, and I can just play that in my restaurant. And as a matter of fact, because I made it, or we own it and everything else, then I should be getting somebody to pay me because I'm playing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes more of a situation where, you're taking out the humanity of music. And I think that's what that to me is where it is really, really detrimental, in the sense that, um, without having a soul to the music,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have it won't have the ability to connect. That, and this is all my opinion on how I've seen music morph into where it is today.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like it will never sound the way I think it should, in order for it to mean something to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and again, if it's meaning something to the tastemakers, or the generations that are younger than me, then it's fine. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
there may come a time that that's the kind of music that they come to want.
Yeah, that's true.
But I do believe that everything comes full circle. And I was listening to something that Eric Sermon was talking about. It's like, um, with us growing up in music and everything else, and through the times that we did, you know, it wasn't just about us listening to each other. I wasn't listening to everybody around me. I still had we had the music of our parents. We had the Temptations. We had the Motown sound. We had all the Chuck Berry, BB King, all of those different people, the staple singers and everything else. So we had something that wasn't necessarily the things we were listening to every single day, but there was a distinctive difference between that music and the music of our generation.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at this generation, what are they really kind of going back to? And I wouldn't even say referencing, but where are they kind of, peeling the layers back, and going back to, that's not the music of their time right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not there. So there's already this disconnect that is slowly but surely building. And we're talking about a generation of people who really don't, at least, and this is just, stuff that I see and read, the generation of artists right now, they don't really, I'm not saying paying homage to the older generation, but I don't think they really listen to the older generation.
That's true.
And because of that, they don't have anything to really kind of reference in their mind. I mean, I grew up with listening to Tupac, Scarface, all these other different artists and everything. And as an older, adult, I'm not driving around listening to Tupac like I used to. I
Mm-hmm.
still will bump Tupac in the confines of my own home, but at the same time, it's just a different time and place. But I can go back and reference the things that I heard when I was growing up, which would be
Mm-hmm.
my parents. So I think that there's a difference in that regard.
hmm And you hit the nail right on the head when you mentioned the whole thing about humanality and the whole feel of music. Like you can put as many like computer programs, all that stuff, all this over processing, which you hear a lot nowadays in the music. You can put all this extra stuff into it. But if it doesn't have a soul to it, like you said, it's not going to connect at all. Like people can say, "Oh, I can come up with a song made strictly from AI 100%. You won't even know that wasn't made from a real artist." Yes, you will, because you can just sit there. Anybody that's a musician or anybody out there that really like just loves music so much, you can feel whether or not it has a real feeling in the music. So you can sit there and run that whole thing about, AI or whatever the case may be. I can make it and it can sound just as human as I want it to be. No, you cannot. Like you said, you can't. There's just that human element that will never be replaced with the music when it comes to the use of AI, in my opinion.
Right. No, I totally agree. If it doesn't connect, and like I said, maybe it does connect to the younger generation. If it does, then so be it. They'll have music that doesn't have a soul.
Hmm
But for me, it has to connect. It has to be something that I can feel. And
Yeah.
and again, music being as subjective as it is, you know, everybody's kind of entitled to their own way of how they feel about certain music. But to
hmm
me, it's how I engage and how I interact in music that makes me feel a certain way, which is also why I make the kind of music that I make, because
hmm
it's what I feel. It's how I want to engage in the music.
hmm
So it like I said, this is a very subjective art that I think everybody has varying opinions about it and things like that.
That is true.
But for, for me, I just think that it becomes one of those situations where we can either choose to leverage it in the best way possible, again, like any other technology, or we can simply ignore it. And I
hmm
think I think the part of ignoring it may be detrimental to the masses, but if there's enough people that ignore it and move on past it, then it becomes an ignored art. And what I mean by that, or not an ignored art, but ignored technology. And
hmm
what I mean by that is the different types of technologies that have exist, that have came and gone, such as the beta tape, things like that. They didn't sustain themselves because no one found it to be a usable thing, or no one found it to be very profitable. So if AI falls into that category, then so be it. No one will start to use it. But then when you do have enough people that leverage it in such a way that it begins to take over, then either you learn as much as you can about it
hmm
and use it to your advantage, or most likely the unfortunate scenario is that you get left in the dust, because that's what technology can do.
That is
It can
true.
it can either keep you on the technology train, or you can get left behind, and then by the time you decide to play catch up, it's too late.
That is a fact. And that's the one thing I hear a lot of too, man. Like, with the advancements of technology, either you get with the program or you get left behind. That is true. Like I said, I mentioned earlier that my reluctance to buy into certain parts of technology, particularly the whole idea of using AI. But I've come around. I'm starting to get to the point where it's like, you know what, this is where we're trending towards. This is where we're headed, and this is what the new wave is going to be real soon. So it's like either, like you say, either you adapt to it or you just get out the way, and or you're going to get left behind. But another key word that you've been saying, and this is one that we used a lot earlier in our discussion that we had over on X, is the word leverage. Now, when you think of leverage, like you've been mentioning that in a lot of examples here within this conversation, and a lot of very good examples of that as well. So, for the people out there, when it comes to leverage, who don't quite understand what do you mean by that, can you explain that to them a little bit more in detail?
Well, leverage is really taking advantage of the assets and the resources that you already have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when people look at doing different things when it comes to music, and I think the best scenario or the best example of that is those people who have like a catalog of music and hadn't done anything with it,
Mm-hmm.
or they just, they were working with people and they're not, and they just got a bunch of beats on a hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the leverage of being able to take advantage of that information that you already have is something like BeatStars,
Mm-hmm.
or all of these other different ways of being able to now sell what you have. And to me, I think that's where it sometimes you have tunnel vision to what you're really trying to focus on and what you're trying to do, that you don't realize that there are so many other things that are at your disposal that you already have, that doesn't require you to do anything different except take advantage of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I consider leverage to be, and it just continues to go deeper and deeper as long as you continue to leverage or take advantage of the things that you already have,
Mm.
and it can be whether it be the usage of, I wouldn't say a person, but just being able to take advantage of the contacts that you might have, the things that they may know, the information highway is there. There's
Mm-hmm.
no reason why you can't find answers to a lot of different things. I mean, there's still stuff I have questions on that I can't find answers to, but at the same time, I know that there's different ways of getting that information. So you just have to keep finding the way to get that information. And that to me is what I consider leverage to be, because there's just too many resources that can assist you with the things that you might run into as problems.
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely true, and I do appreciate you for that answer, because we was having that discussion earlier, and that was one of the things that I wanted to harp on a lot too. For those of y'all out there that is watching this right now we really get ready to get into the entree of this discussion here right now. So, with that being said, the term leverage, somebody that has been around for as long as you have within the music industry, you have seen over time the pie, as we metaphorically refer to the amount of money that is floating around right now within the music industry. We've gradually seen the pie shrink over that
Hmm.
time. So now
Yeah.
you got a lot of people right now, they're scrambling because you see the music, unfortunately, doesn't really have as much value in terms of profitability as it once did before, especially with all the different roadblocks that's been in the way for artists for a long time. But that's when we was getting into the conversation when we was talking about leverage, where people have to learn how to leverage what they have. Okay, so like, for example, you have yourself, your brand. All right, so you
Hmm.
have your brand as an artist. You have your fan base that you're building through your music. You can leverage that. You know what I mean? Like, when you build these relationships with the community that you have built around your music, you can use that leverage that you gained from that to go towards maybe any other venture that you may have. Because more than likely, if they support your music and been supporting you for this long amount of time, and they feel as though they built that relationship with you, then more than likely they're going to follow you on whatever venture that you may have. And then, like I said earlier, music is a very powerful marketing tool if you use it correctly. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen a lot of people use the power of their music, or as you said, the leverage of the things that they have already, use that to facilitate a better, standing for themselves as far as being able to, profit off of their music. What do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I think it's necessary,
Mm-hmm.
because that pie is shrinking,
Mm-hmm.
or has shrunk. I mean, everyone has a different reason as to why they're doing music,
Mm-hmm.
or what has gotten them to want to do it, or whatever the case may be. It may be because they're passionate about it and they just want to be heard, or they look at it and they say, you know what, I can see myself doing this as a full time job,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that may call for. So even that, for what it is, a full time job. I mean, taking advantage of all your resources, just your talents, everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I see those work for hires being able to do what they do. There's a few young ladies that I see. I think they're probably more on Instagram than anywhere else, but they
Mm-hmm.
talk about it. I mean, like this one young lady, she talks about how um, she had done all this songwriting and everything else, and then she had all of these songs left over, and she realized, you know what, I can actually do something with this.
Mm-hmm.
So she now presented herself as a singer songwriter, and even to the point of not just doing, you know, top line demos, but also being able to write for independent artists and things like that. Whatever it takes for her to be able to unload that stuff. And that's really what it comes down to, is that, you know, what value will it be if you got a hard drive full of beats, or you know, a journal full of songs that nobody's ever going to hear, if you don't find a way to leverage it, you don't
Mm-hmm.
find a way to take advantage of that. So sometimes it is just a matter of being able to say, look, you know what, I'm willing to kind of sell it. And for me, I think it was, you know, a generational thing that I mean, I held beats close to the vest, you know, for a very long time.
Right.
Like, you know what? This is one of my all time favorites. So ain't nobody getting this. You know, I done heard you. You whack. I can't even let you hear this beat, because you know, I got to keep them. I got to hold them. And
Right.
next thing you know, I got, you know, 200 something songs that I done kept to the vest, because I didn't want to get it out to somebody else to use, because I felt like they weren't going to do it justice.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm holding it for myself because I'm going to pin the raps to these, or whatever. And when it's all said and done, even now, um, I still got my ASR 10. I still got, you know, all my floppy disks and everything else. I got a ton of beats that are just kind of sitting.
Mm-hmm.
So what it comes down to is that if I'm looking to do something or thinking about something, I'm like, you know, well, maybe let me pop in a disc and see if something kind of jumps out at me. It may not be the entire piece that I use, but it may be something that gets me motivated, or gets me energized to actually doing something, and you know, pulling it out of that age and then bringing it to something of today.
Mm-hmm.
That's taking advantage of the stuff that I've already done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that artists have to really figure out what is it that they're doing, what they're doing it for, and what that end result might be. I mean, for me, it doesn't have to be a money making situation. This is
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of me just doing what I love to do,
Mm-hmm.
and just making it work. You know, it doesn't have to be a situation for me that I needed to generate a paycheck. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and for those people who do, I think they almost have to look at it the way um, old movies used to look at music. You know, back in the day, and not that far back, but just back in the day, the the movies that came out, they were the meat. You know what I'm saying? And it was the soundtracks that were kind of like the hustle
Mm-hmm.
to the music, or to the movie. So a movie that was pretty decent, or a pretty good movie, then you got these people that saying, hey, wait a minute, you know what? We got these artists over here. Why don't we get them to do the music for the movie, and then we sell that, and we double up. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we so not only are we gonna make, you know, money off the soundtrack, but we're gonna make money off this movie too, and we're gonna play it through the movie. We're gonna do all these different things that hit on everything that people are trying to do right now, which is get these sync licenses. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do all of this stuff, and they're talking about this is where you make your money, and this and that and the other. Well, you know what? The major motion picture company's been doing this for the longest time, and that's what the soundtracks were.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's all they were. So when it comes down to it, it becomes a situation of, if that's what you're trying to do, if you're trying to get music to sync and everything else, and that's the way you want to make your money, then fine, knock yourself out. That's what you got to do,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that might mean a very similar situation to what we was talking about with AI. That
Mm-hmm.
may mean you got to create a bunch of videos that probably don't really have much of a real meaning behind anything, but it gives you the opportunity to display your music by connecting it to a video.
Yeah.
So someone may be able to say, "Man, that video with that music, you know, was hot," versus
Mm-hmm.
just listening to somebody's music, because again, if they can't connect to it, then they're really not going to appreciate it. So you look at the music that you see on YouTube more often than not, it's
Hmm.
just some, I wouldn't say AI related, but it's just some video or somebody's watching it or whatever, and then they got somebody's music on the background. So
Hmm.
it really just depends on what the end result is that somebody's trying to do.
That is true.
One of the people that we was talking with today, he had, he spoke about his grant, and then he spoke about being able to engage different people, display his art, and just for clarity, it's like, are we talking about music or are we talking about something else?
Hmm.
And his art is being both the music and his paintings,
Hmm.
So if that's what brings people to the table for him, then he's on the right path. He's
Right.
leveraging one art over the other, as I wouldn't say as a hustle, but one is taking precedence over the other, that's drawing attention to the one that you didn't lead with.
Hmm.
So in that sense, he had the artistry or the paintings to lead to his music. So his music then definitely became the soundtrack to his artwork.
Hmm.
And if you look at some of the things that the NFTs do and all that stuff, and what you can create in that space, in that world, then you can have your music really truly be a soundtrack to different things. You just have to find the lane that works for you, the one that's most beneficial to what you're doing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I know who you're talking about. Shout out to him as well. And that's pretty dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though, the NFT concept, yes, is kind of like, similar and hand in hand with that, with what he's doing. But I got a feeling, because people's gonna want tangible artwork. I understand, the digital age we're in right now, but like you said, like we've been discussing earlier, the humanization of art. You're gonna people gonna want to have something they can touch. They're gonna have something that they can hang up in their living room, especially if they feel like that, and if they value it that much, they're gonna want to have that, the physical, tangible item within their hands. So what he's doing right now, and he's using his music as a way to leverage his art. I really do think that he's ahead of the game when it comes to the way, music is being marketed right now and creatively, especially with the way the pie is shrinking right now within the music business and the shift that is taking place.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like you said, you got to have something that's tangible, because everybody's gonna want something. and
Hmm.
and to me, I feel like, not having these venues that, man, I mean, I used to call it like the chitlin circuit,
Hmm.
when you could go to all of these different spots for the open mics, and be able to rock out.
Hmm.
Those things are far and few in between nowadays. So then you don't have the ability to interact and engage with new fans and things like that, people that can appreciate your music.
Right.
So that means that your music got to show up through the back door. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? If you got the art on display, then now how can you get your music to kind of be the soundtrack to that artistry that you're delivering, or whatever it is that you're doing? It's kind of like whenever you're, for example, you take your show, whenever you're kind of talking on the show before playing somebody's music, or in between, or hitting a commercial break, whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
that's an opportunity for you to be able to kind of, subtly push your music, as
Hmm.
a soundtrack to everything else that's going on.
Oh yeah.
So like you just have to find the right vehicles to get that music there, and that's what I'm saying, is that music has always been a soundtrack to life. So
Hmm.
if life is not being represented,
Hmm.
then all you have is a ton of music that is not connecting to anything.
That is true.
So him doing that with his art, I think that's it's a master plan. You know what I'm saying? Because there is something tangible that he has, and especially if people are drawing interest to his art,
Hmm.
then what happens is his music is the soundtrack to it.
Oh
Whether
yeah.
they whether, let's say it's not for sale, but it's just on view or whatever, then people are looking at it or whatever, and they liking what they're seeing, and they hearing the music or whatever, not really thinking too much else about it. Then fast forward to 3 weeks or so or whatever, and then you're driving down the street and whatnot, and you say, you know what, let me see what's on um, Sirius XM or whatever, or something
Hmm.
like that. So you turn it on or whatever, and they listening, and then they hear that song again. It's gonna trigger them back to that art
Hmm.
because now they have something that they can connect it to. And to me, I think that's what you need. Is that it didn't, like, for me, it didn't matter what I was. When I was just listening to something, I was looking at the credits. I was looking at who was involved and everything else, and then
Yeah.
being able to connect the dots later on in time or whatever the case may be. It's the thing that we don't have because we don't have music being delivered in that fashion anymore.
Oh yeah, almost like how back in the days where we found that art connected to the cover art that we would get from a freshly copped album that we just had. Especially
Yeah,
us as artists, we want to take it. We want to see the producers that was involved. A lot of producers that read the credits on the back of the cover and all that stuff. They want to see who was
right.
involved, what instruments was involved. That value. A lot of people out there nowadays, they're failing to realize that a lot of the things that you gotta, whatever product that you're trying to push, whatever it is, whatever you're trying to get to people to connect, you gotta have it where it's like an experience that creates value for people that come in contact with your artwork. And that's where a lot of people get lost in translation, because a lot of people don't really understand the fact that when you have somebody that's coming and they're getting introduced to you for the first time, you got to create an experience that's going to keep them coming back. And if you're not creating that experience, then you're not going to do so well, especially right now with this whole DIY thing that you see going on. And, I want to say shout out to Curtis King TV on YouTube, because he's one that is definitely leading this whole DIY movement for artists, where he's empowering, more and more artists to take things more into their own hands, especially with the way streaming platforms are really not beneficial to the artists in terms of paying out royalties, paying out, your various things that come with getting your song played on these platforms. So you see him. He took all his music off his streaming platforms. He took it off of all the streaming services. He put up a website. He got his whole thing going, and he's using his own. He's leveraging his platform as what he does with his podcast. He's using his
Right.
platform as a way to leverage people to his music. Like, I even see he be having whole concerts he be performing, doing record releases for his projects on his YouTube channel, and they be getting like a whole lot of views and stuff as well. So, like, you're right, people have to really learn how to leverage, and not only leverage, you got to also build an experience with that person that's going to create some type of value that they can keep coming back for.
Yeah, I mean, if just by how you're talking about it right now, I haven't seen it, but it's making me interested in it because I can hear how it's drawing you in,
Hmm.
and if you think about it, him not having those videos on YouTube or whatnot, and it's just music, then where is the connectivity to it? And I'm not saying that you don't necessarily that you necessarily have to have videos and things like that, but that's
Hmm.
his vehicle. That's the way he's trying to get from point A to point B, and it's working for him.
Hmm.
But it just becomes a matter of how and what people want to do with the music that they have.
That's true.
And some people are, they have a different level of what they're looking to do. If they're looking to um, say, hey, you know what, I want to make this a full time job and this and that and the other. I want to be the next whoever. Then you got to be on that same path,
Hmm.
and whatever that path might be, in order for you to be the next whoever, that means that you got to look into the depth of how they went about doing what they were doing,
Oh yeah.
and nobody knows, like, I I'm trying to think. I think it was uh what's my man, Lloyd Banks, when
My
he was
man.
talking
Yeah.
about before his first album came out. He said something about how he did like 360, or no, 370 something shows in a year. And whoever was interviewing him was like, but it's only 365 days in a year. He was like, yeah, I know. So some days I had two shows,
Mm,
so he was talking about the different shows that he had and everything else. And it's like, man, that just goes to show you that dude was probably never home. So
mm-hmm.
there's a sacrifice involved to trying to get to a certain level.
That's true.
When people start to think about wanting to be the next Beyonce and all of these other different things, you gotta look at what was what was lost in the process. What did she sacrifice to get to where she is? And there's so many people that have sacrificed something to get to where they are, and
Mm-hmm.
and there's no shortcutting that. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what day and age we're in, or no matter what the technology might call for, if that is your goal, if your goal is to be superstar status or whatever, you got to really, really understand what sacrifices were made to get there, because
Absolutely.
that part of it don't change.
That is the fact. And, I appreciate the fact that you mentioned earlier, that you could hear that it speaks to me what I was mentioning about the whole thing with Curtis King is because this is
Uh,
something that I've been speaking for a very long time. Not only myself, but another, friend of mine within this whole thing. Shout out to Divine Thought. It's something that he's been harping on for a very long time since I first met him. But this was something that, I've had a vision for a very long time. Like for those of you out there that's listening right now, those of you who may have been, rocking with me from the start. And just to give you a little history about myself, I've been doing what I'm doing right now since 2013. I originally started with Too Much Radio that only lasted about 7 episodes. And then, within that time period, I went into a whole 2 year period where I was just doing nothing but planning, researching, and then I ended up launching the nonstop radio show, which I dropped in 2016. And then now you see me going through the rebrand, and it's now the EMillio EgBar Show. But what I had the idea, the whole vision for this was the fact that me being an artist, how can I find a way to get my music out there without having a budget to get a radio spin or a radio campaign popping? Because those of you out there who don't know, a radio campaign on a major radio station, especially here in New York,
yeah,
is going to run you a few $1,000s. You know what I mean?
so,
So,
yes,
I wanted to level the playing field, not only for myself with my music, but also for other artists, because I know there's a lot of talented individuals out there who don't get the opportunity or have the resources to get their music out there. So I wanted to do what I could and building a platform where artists who are from different regions that a lot of people don't hear about, like say for example West Virginia. I always bring that up because we have people from West Virginia on the show. Shout out to Duck City Music, because now they came back on our show. They was one of the first people on our show back in 2016, and look what they're doing right now. Like these dudes really made a way for themselves. And I'm not putting all that credit on me. I'm not saying that at all. We just was the
mhm,
inspiration, and that's what this platform was about trying to provide. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to take that and provide a playing field for artists like myself who didn't have the whole means of getting music out there to be heard for other people. You know what I mean?
right, right. Yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference. It's everything, kind of comes back to, what people are are in music for,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, I mean, you could see that there wasn't the type of vehicles that you would love to have or have had for you,
Mm-hmm.
just in your music specifically. So instead, you create a vehicle for not just your music but for everyone else as well. And to me, I think that's where artists have to do a little bit more to get to people like you.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be able to seek those individuals out and really try to find a way to navigate these waters
Right.
of being able to get their music heard and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it's just there's so many different changes. Even when I think about when I listen to music, like a buddy of mine, he was telling me, he was like, "Yeah, man, you got to check out Redman's latest album." I'm like, man, I'm so busy. I literally got to make time, to sit down and actually listen to the album, because I'm all over the place. It's one thing to be, Back when I was, I had that little flip phone, back in the day with my pager or whatnot, where I got to take some time to actually pull over or make a call or whatever. But in the meantime, there's nothing that's disrupting me from listening to my music.
Right.
Now, I'm driving, phone calls popping up on the screen. I can't even listen to the music like I wanted to. So now I got to take this call, and then now that I got an opportunity to take the call, I might as well talk to whoever it is I'm talking to between point A and point B. So
Right. Right.
it's just different. So when I actually did find the time to listen to the Redman album, I'm like, okay, this is dope. I'm feeling this, but it's the places in which I'm listening to music now and just how different it is than
Hmm.
before. Even as a teen, if there was music you didn't want to be playing around the house or around your parents, you can listen to it in the car.
Right.
And don't nobody care about that except those people who's in the car with you or whatnot. So everything was just different in how you were able to interact and engage with music. So
Hmm.
because of that, you got to find different ways, and some of those different ways is shows like yours.
Hmm.
Where you have an opportunity to be able to reach a different audience that you normally wouldn't be able to reach in your own space.
Hmm.
And I think that's where again I think no matter what, if people if artists have the ability to define why they're doing what they're doing, then I think it determines where they go or what they do with their music. No matter what, everybody can be talented in their own way and everything else. And I've seen it in so many different facets. I mean, I know that everybody has probably seen that great basketball player that just never made it.
Hmm.
Because they were just talented. They were naturally good. They didn't have to do a lot of different things. They show up to the blacktop and they put in the work,
Hmm.
but they never made it to the big time, and that had everything to do with all of the other things surrounding it. Whether it
Hmm.
be going to school, whether it be making the grades, getting into a college, doing all these other different things to get from point A to point B. So if that person's goal was not to get to the professional level, then I'm sure he's cool with being the neighborhood baller. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Somebody that's like, hey man, you remember Joe? He was dope. But he not gonna be that dude in the NBA because
Right.
he didn't put in. That wasn't the path that he chose, and sometimes those paths can be chosen for you, but you still have the ability to navigate it to get to a goal that you set out for yourself.
That's
So
true.
to me, I believe that whatever the artist's goal is, the technology is allowing you to find so many different ways to achieve it. So by all means take advantage of that stuff so that you're not the one left behind. But the resources by comparison, I mean, everything I had to find growing up was in the library.
Right.
And if it wasn't in the library, you'd be hopeful that somebody in your neighborhood had an encyclopedia, but that's it. That's the best you got.
Hmm.
So now you can find anything anywhere just by blurting out a question, depending on what you got sitting around you. If you got a
Hmm.
Google box or something else like that, you can get an answer,
Right.
or you can listen to shows like these, or you can engage with people on X or Instagram or whatever,
Hmm.
and just kind of remember that even though you are learning and you are building the catalog of information that you need, that it still doesn't stop you from engaging and beginning to build on an audience. And I think that's where X has the ability to, or any of these social media platforms, they have the ability to corral all of the people, all of the like-minded individuals that are actually doing and saying the same thing, that they always show up on your page.
Hmm.
So you don't expand any, because now you're talking to everyone who's doing music. And
Hmm.
and to me that's a whole nother bag in terms of where the music business is of today. But
Hmm.
point is that you have to extend yourself beyond that. And I go back to my man with who has the art and the music. I mean, he did that by just kind of pushing himself outside of music, but also, finding the art circle, the artistry circle that he was able to get into, and also be able to display both his art and his music at the same time.
Hmm.
That's what we have to do. You're never going to find fans and a fan base that can grow amongst a bunch of producers if you are a producer.
Right.
We'll appreciate what you do, but we ain't gonna be a fan. It's not a negative thing. It's just what it is.
It's a
I mean,
competitive nature.
yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like, basketball players. They might like each other's style and how they play and everything else, but those aren't the fans.
Hmm.
The fans are the ones who are buying tickets and coming to see them play. But I think that that's the part of it where you kind of have to expand a little bit and just continue to build, continue to find the individuals that actually appreciate music. And even to me, I just recently, I was real hesitant about SoundCloud because I was trying to figure out, well, why is it that, and this is a while back, why
Hmm.
Spotify wasn't really engaging, or DistroKid wasn't really engaging SoundCloud compared to all of the other music platforms,
Hmm.
only to know that SoundCloud was on the back end working on their own distribution situation. So DistroKid was not kind of pushing to that platform.
Hmm.
And I kind of waited for a while before I decided to pull the trigger on signing up for distribution on SoundCloud. And interestingly enough, um, music seems to get more streams, more. Now, I hate this word organic because I see it so many times, I hear it so
Right.
many times, but
It's a buzzword.
the, oh man, ridiculous. But I put some music out on SoundCloud, and I like nothing, no promo plan, no marketing, nothing, and overnight,
Yeah.
200 something streams and something like that. And it's like, what in the world is going on? But
Yeah.
it's telling me, it's giving me an indication that, and I'm not gonna say that the music is good, bad, or indifferent, but music, the style and taste of it aside, it's demonstrating to me that there are actual fans, actual music listeners that are probably on Spot or on SoundCloud more than Spotify.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, well, you know what? This might be something I might have to spend a little bit more time with, because
Right.
I just didn't think it was like that. Because my original use of SoundCloud was uploading music, sending it to people so that they could hear it
Right.
before we started working and everything else, but not, just kind of not giving them the ability to download it. So it
Almost
was
like
giving me a way to
Dropbox.
kind of, yeah, well, a way to protect it without necessarily uh, giving somebody the inability to listen to what I was offering so that we could work together. So,
Hmm.
again, it's a different outlet, a different venue, a different way of being able to engage. And there's people on there that are, they just like music. They're
Hmm.
not really looking for anything else but that.
Absolutely.
So, it's just different, where everybody kind of knows or feels like, Spotify pays the most and Spotify is the most popular. Well, there's a lot of different things to be said about Spotify. Like, you can't, at least I've seen it with trying to send out a few links to certain people. They don't get the song that I send them directly. It's
Right.
like, because they don't have a paid subscription or whatever, so they got to go through a couple of different other songs before they actually hear the song that I sent them. So, different by comparison. You send a link that's from SoundCloud, that's what they're gonna get.
Hmm.
That's just my experience. I don't know. I could be wrong, but no, most people probably wouldn't know that it's a different situation because they're sending it to everyone who probably already has a Spotify subscription
Hmm.
because they're artists themselves. So it's just different when you just gotta navigate certain things. There's again, there's so much information out there. You just have to navigate the pitfalls and the things that are more or less speed bumps, and
Hmm.
get down to the things that you need to get down to as far as the path that you're trying to be on to reach whatever the goal might be.
Mhm. And that is true. You know, I'm gonna be honest. I'm a proud SoundCloud user. Like when
Yeah.
I first started with the show, the nonstop radio show, that's where I was putting my episodes before I started getting syndicated and being on a whole lot of other different programs at that time or other stations at that time. But what people
Hmm.
fail to realize, you know, because they created so much of a stigma around people that put their music out on SoundCloud that people didn't want to use the platform because they didn't want to be labeled a SoundCloud rapper. But what they don't realize now is that you can monetize your music off of SoundCloud, and you can probably make more money now on SoundCloud than what you can on a lot of these streaming platforms. You know what I'm saying? And it also goes
Yeah.
back to what we were talking about earlier when I asked you the question about whether or not you feel or why doesn't it feel like indie artists and unsigned artists really take advantage of platforms like this. And one of the answers you had for me was the fact that they don't feel as though they get paid or they don't get paid enough. And then that's when I
Right.
came back with the response like, yes, there are platforms out there where you can get paid royalties. You just got to do your research. And that goes back to what you're saying too. Like the power of information. Like there's so much information out there, free information. You just got to be willing to find it. Like for example, my email address is all over my social media, but I will still have people inbox me, ask me, what's your email? You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. You know, people want things handed to them. You know, instead of
Yeah.
going out there and putting the work in themselves.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways. Like like I said, I found that Big Shot Radio
Mm-hmm.
um, through a link that you sent of the playback of your show.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking and I'm digging and I'm like, wow, there's a bunch of shows on here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me, and I'm looking at the pictures. I'm zooming in. I'm trying to find email addresses. I'm trying to find everything that I can about these different radio shows.
Mm-hmm.
And even I knew this young lady who was from the UK. She was releasing some music and she was talking about uh, Amazing Radio. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what is that? I go out there, I look up Amazing Radio and everything else, and I'm like, okay, let me send them my music, or let me set up a profile and everything else, and get the music out on there. And I think, they are a radio station. They tell you, we report to all of the publishing companies and this and that and the other. And man, I get a weekly report
Mm-hmm.
of the music that got played, and it's not it ain't got to be a whole bunch, where it's like being played every hour on the hour. But I mean, my music is getting played, or
Mm-hmm.
music that I've had my hand on, it's getting played at least 17 between I'd say between 17 and 30 times a week. So to me, it's just it's about catching that person or that audience that just might be listening at that one particular moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And it really goes back to the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to catch fire right away. You just never know. I got a
Right.
radio station, college radio station in North Carolina that's been playing my music for the past 2 years. And
Wow.
and the thing is that you never know who's listening.
That's
And
true.
and I can't pretend to act like that, or act like I should know. It just doesn't. That's not the way things work. So you
Mm-hmm.
just have to wait for that opportunity, or that situation, that tipping point,
Mm-hmm.
for something to happen. And you just never know what it's going to be, when it's going to be, whatever. And there's, like I said, there's so many different marketing, promotional type of tools that you can leverage. I mean, the one that I think I've enjoyed the most right now is Song Tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they can get your music out in front of um, the social media platforms and everything. I would say TikTok, but we know that's going away, or whatever they're gonna do.
We don't
Gonna
know
do.
yet. Allegedly.
Yeah, we don't know. But even or Facebook or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
all of these other different things. So I mean, we see ads all the time. We just don't know, you know, they they're not bothering us because of stuff we're probably looking for.
Right.
But when it's all said and done, I think I've seen it maybe a boatload of times here this past week, is that I could be looking at a conversation on X, and then next thing you know, I see some ad where I don't even. It doesn't even look like an ad. Almost, it looks like somebody's posting something about like, check out this music. They're not
Yeah.
really saying check out this music, but it's a link and all this other different stuff. And I'm like, well, what is this?
They're
And
also
next thing
doing
you know,
that. I'm
you
sorry.
got to click.
Yeah, I
Oh
was.
no, I was just saying, you got to click after that. You don't know what it's about.
Uh-huh. No, what I was saying is they also doing that on YouTube as well. Like where I've seen plenty of times where I've come through a YouTube ad and it's an actual music video. And I'm
That's
like,
right.
wow. Like I'll be sitting there and
Yep.
I'm like, yo, like I'll be forgetting that I'm watching a different video because I'm sitting here caught up on this YouTube ad of this music video. Like that's why that's the thing. Like people gotta understand, especially artists out there, and not saying this directly to them. Like there's other avenues that are available to you. You just gotta know what avenues work best for you, like you said. And then not only that, you not only gotta know what avenues work best for you, you gotta also do your research, man, because a lot of people think that, a lot of these platforms and stuff like mine aren't very, very beneficial. But what you just said earlier is that, you do have stations that report to, media based BDS and all these different, tracking situations. College radio, for example, you can
Yeah.
even chart over there on college radio platforms if you go to the right platforms. And I believe even some of them even pay out as well. It just comes down to just doing your research. So let me ask you, like, how do you feel about platforms like what I provide and just online broadcast, platforms in general without making it sound too redundant?
I mean, I think when it's all said and done, is tapping into an audience that I otherwise wouldn't tap into,
Mm-hmm.
or couldn't tap into rather, because everybody has something to bring to the table when they have an audience, and if you have an audience, and we've seen it. I think anybody who's tuned in over the past, I say 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm only just speaking for myself, but
Mm-hmm.
just in the just over the past few weeks, I've watched the audience grow.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that being the case, that means that there's more of an opportunity of being able to interact with those people,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what it is. And that's how I find it to be beneficial, is that if that's one more person I can connect to, then I'm building the brand. I'm increasing the visibility of what it is that I do or what it is that I provide.
Mm-hmm.
It's things like this, having this dialogue, having this conversation. Some people may think I'm full of shit. Some people may think, you know what, it sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I want to reach out to him and talk to him more, or maybe we can find some way to work together, or whatever the case may be. Those things don't happen without what you do,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I don't shy away from that kind of stuff. I mean, I welcome it because you never know who's listening,
That's
and
true.
what they have the ability to provide, and what you can provide to them. And I think for me, it's always been about not necessarily what can I get out of something, but what can
Mm-hmm.
I provide to the situation. And whenever I approach it in that world of me being able to provide something that I have, that I can offer, then there's always something that's going to come back to me. There's always
Mm-hmm.
something beneficial about that. So I think that it's literally one of the better things you can do, because there's not a lot. I'm not gonna say not a lot, but there's a smaller level or a lesser level of red tape in this type of space that we're in. With your show and everything else. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that can just pick up the phone and get to whoever they need to get to at a radio station. So
Mm-hmm.
why not find the people who are actually looking for you to get in touch
Right.
with? You know, so I think it's very beneficial. I think that you know certain I think the environment has focused or created artists in their minds where they're kind of counting the pennies, because we
Mm-hmm.
know we're not getting much. So every penny counts, if you
Right.
will. And that being the case, they kind of shy away from things that they can't readily see as beneficial. And I think part of it is that even though some of them will complain about that, or gripe about not getting paid, or whatever the case may be when it comes to playing my music or whatnot. But it's a twofold situation. So you'd rather pay somebody else to spin your music.
Right.
You'd rather pay somebody else to give you a lackluster review, but just so that those 35 or 40 people that's listening actually heard your music. Well, I mean, where does it go from there? You know what I'm saying? Does it actually help you in any way, shape, or form, or is it just a bunch of
It's just for
producers
show.
listening to? So what?
No, I was saying it's just for show. Like basically, when it
Yeah,
comes down to it, it's just for show.
yeah. So I mean, I think that's where that being involved in situations like this, I think this is where artists have the potential to miss out. And I think it may also kind of speak to their own business acumen when it comes down to what they're trying to do. They may not even have their publishing in order,
Mm-hmm.
so they think they're missing out on music, or they think they're missing out on money, but they don't realize that they didn't. If they don't have a publishing in order, you definitely ain't getting the money, and it ain't got nothing to do with what anybody else does.
Brother, let
So
me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say that that becomes a situation that's most people just simply don't understand. I can't tell
Mm-hmm.
you how many people I've collaborated with that I've ended up educating them on their publishing because they don't realize what it is. They think the publishing and the splits and all of that is the mechanical side of things that they're getting from their distributors like DistroKid or whatever. And they says, well, I work with DistroKid too. I'm not talking about that. I'm asking you about your publishing.
Right.
And then it becomes a whole nother. Well, what is that? Well,
Mm-hmm.
let me put you up on it so that you can understand what it is and what it means. And I know it's harder in this time than it is before because you can't readily see the difference between mechanicals and publishing if you don't really understand it
Right.
because um, you know that's just where we are today because we have less physical mediums. So
Hmm. Well, the one thing about the physical mediums I'm starting to see now, you got the vinyls coming back. I'm loving that, especially somebody like myself that loves to collect vinyl. I'm liking the fact that you're seeing people going more back to physical copies. Like we were saying earlier, getting back to tangible items that provide some kind of value, create some kind of experience, or create some kind of connection with the person it that has received your work. You know what I mean? So I'm like in
yeah,
seeing that. And then also like another thing that, you spoke to my heart on earlier is when you mentioned the whole thing about, review shows. Like me, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have no problem with no review show. I'm not trying to make it seem like I'm being a hater or, talking down about them. Cause people gotta do what they gotta do. That's what we were talking about when it comes to leverage earlier. But the thing that gets to me is like you will go pay to go skip a line. You'll go pay to go do something that's not really going to get you that much traction off a review show, which is it's okay if you're using it as a marketing tool. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, how much is it really going to get your song out there? Going and paying this money just to get it heard for a few seconds, and then in most cases you're gonna hit on, oh, that shit was trash and all this other stuff, and then they're gonna downplay you, take your money. Then at the end of the day, you don't have a real fair assessment about how your song
right.
is. You know what I'm saying? So like, you spoke to my heart on that one because I encourage people, and yes, biasly enough, because I'm in this space, I encourage people a lot, especially artists, to use platforms like this because you can leverage the situation. Like I name, a lot of artists that I've read articles on who have spoke about using platforms like this to help build up their audience, to help build up, things that's going to help propel their career going forward in the future and all that stuff. And they use platforms like this to help them accomplish that. That's why I'm so passionate about it because I'm like, you have these avenues in front of you. You just got to use it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's always something you can go back to and reference.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that when people have to figure out the types of things that they want to pay for and what they want to do, again, I really do believe that it goes back to one's path, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that path is. If I'm really interested and truly looking to collaborate let's say I want to collaborate with some other producers and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll slide into one of them shows and just listen to what people doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then basically I got I got an hour worth of resumes that I can listen to
Mm-hmm.
and see if it's somebody that I want to work with. Now, of course, we got to agree on it or whatever, but they can always still say no. But still, it's giving me an opportunity to actually listen
Yeah.
to what somebody's doing and what their production work may sound like.
Mm-hmm.
But to pay for that, I think that it everything goes back to people's purpose. You know what I'm saying? If your purpose is to offer a platform up that can deliver and things like that, still having a little bit of things that you might offer on the side that might be a different level of services or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
then that's your avenue, that's your plan, that's your goal, that's how you want to go about doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you got people who are really kind of putting it out there that hey, we doing reviews and this and that and the other. This is what it's gonna cost. Blah blah blah. Well, I need to know, how you growing this thing. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? What are you doing that's gonna, improve my chances of gaining a bigger audience? Because
Mm-hmm.
that is the end goal for me, is to gain a bigger audience. It's not
Absolutely.
just to be, you know, in around in the same barrel with everybody else. It's being able to grow and expand the music beyond the space in which I can already operate. And if that's meaning that I got to pay for that, then I just don't find myself wanting to do something like that. I would rather spend that money on Submit Hub or something else like that,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what the goal is. And to me, it's like, well, how can I take this $15 or whatever and make it work, make it do more than somebody giving me some brief synopsis of my music that they may feel a certain way about it, and then half the time, I don't even know what the person's background is that's actually reviewing my music. So why am I giving this person so much credit
Mm-hmm.
to review my music and whatnot? And when it's all said and done, when it comes to radio stations in general terms, they're not reviewing your music. They're either they gonna play it or they
They're
not gonna
not
play it.
right.
So again, it goes back to the path, the goal. What's the end result here? What are you trying to get out of this situation? And
Right.
and everybody has their own um, underlying agenda, and it's not a negative thing. It's just, if I know what your agenda is and you know what my agenda is, and we can meet somewhere in the middle, then
Mm-hmm.
cool. If that don't work, then that means that either I can't be a part of your agenda or you can't be a part of mine,
That's
and there's
right.
nothing wrong with that.
That's right. And and I'm gonna say, I do review stuff. And I'm not going to say like I don't do it in the traditional sense of what you see a review show. Like last week, I don't know if you tuned in and you saw the part where I went over Ace Wonder's project, The Odyssey of One.
Yeah,
When I do
yeah,
reviews, it's more so like a promotional tool because I sat and I've listened to the project itself and I felt like this is the best three songs that I heard on there that I would think that people will listen to and it'll give them more of an interest to go and check out this man's work. You know what I'm saying? So like that's what I do in the sense of when it comes to reviewing. It comes from me just giving a genuine like appreciation of the artwork. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I really, was digging this and this is why. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't try to pretend like I have credentials or like I'm gonna make your song pop off and be the next big thing, even though that is my goal. But at the same time, like I just do it from a real honest thing, and I don't try to charge people over it. But you got people because I understand like people running the business, so you do gotta run your business as such as you see fit. But at the same time, like does a review show really have as much reach as a platform like this that plays your music? And not only do they play your music, they may have a rotation. You may have some of these stations that have your regular rotation on the network that's separate from the show. You know what I mean? So there's different things and different stuff you can get out of this.
yeah. I mean, I think the extra work that you put in behind the show,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be getting it to like the big radio show website. I don't know if I'm even saying it right, but getting to that that website,
Oh, Big
then
Shot
you got,
Radio.
yeah, Big Shot Radio.
Got you.
So you know what I'm saying? You hitting a whole nother audience, that us as artists, we don't even know, but we're being able to benefit from it because you're taking it a step further.
Hmm.
You put out the playlist, taking it a step further. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many different things that are happening that go beyond the 2 hours of being on the show.
Hmm.
It's going beyond that. And again, that being your agenda, then that's, as far as I'm concerned, then we on the same page because
Right.
we are moving in the same direction. But if it's just, hey, kick my money over here and let's talk about your song after I play it for the next 2 minutes, and then that's it, never heard again, nothing,
Hmm.
then that becomes a situation where the benefit is only left within the people that are on the show at the moment in time listening to it.
That's
Are
true.
you driving traffic to your show or your listeners and stuff like that? And then again, as artists, we can do the research that we want to do. If you saying, hey, you know what? If you didn't catch the show today, you can find it on my YouTube channel, this and that and the other. Well, let me go on over here and see how many subscribers he got or how many people are listening or, whatever. I can see that. I can find that information. Or anywhere else. Or when people may talk about, and I always kind of laugh about it a little bit when, you get somebody that say, hey, I can promote your music on my radio station here in Nigeria. We would love to listen to it and this and that and the other. Hey, I ain't gonna be over there no time soon. I ain't gonna be performing no time soon. And on top of that, if we really looking at the big picture of things, y'all ain't really paying out a lot of money over there on the streaming tip. Not only that, I mean, what radio station is this? This is,
Hmm.
whatever, blah, blah, blah. So then I pull up everything and I'm like, I don't even see your name on the radio. I don't even see your name on this station, on this website. So, it's like let's be clear, you're not really just kind of gonna game on anybody just because you think you're giving them something that you think they want, and there's no real value behind it.
Right.
When Spotify ain't paying much on that, when I know you're not registering the songs or reaching back to those songs so that I can get my publishing on it because of the way you playing it, or whatever the case may be. I go to sound charts, I see sound charts ain't tracking it. I can't find a way to validate that the music is being played. What's your playlist? Give me a link to that. If you can't do all of those different things, then I can't really work with you.
Hmm.
But I can go to the radio station in North Carolina that's playing my music, and I can pull up their playlist and I can see how many times they done played my song.
Hmm.
And Amazing Radio will show it as well. So then I go to sound charts and I look to see, well, what's going on here? Where's my music being played, or all these other different demographics
Hmm.
and stuff like that.
And I do.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I do want to say thank you, and I do appreciate you with the advice and the encouragement once again to get back into dropping the playlist from each episode because it has been helpful, and it was something that I was doing at one point in time before, but I had stopped it because I wasn't certain how effective it really was for artists. But now that I'm seeing it more so now, after you've even suggested that I get back into doing that, it has really been helpful. So I do thank you for that, that suggestion, man. I appreciate that.
Oh man, in its own way, it was selfish on my part because I heard somebody's song and I didn't know who it was,
Right.
and I wanted to know. So it was like, oh man, I wish you put a playlist out there so I can at least know who to look for.
Right.
And I think what you get from that is you get a different level of appreciation from the artists themselves,
Hmm.
and they even help promote it. They even say, hey, look, this is who's playing my music and this and that and the other. So. Um, everybody has a part to play. But if everybody's on different agendas, then it never works out.
That
But
is true.
if there's, like I said, if there's a middle ground, and it doesn't necessarily have to be some full blown discussion about your agenda versus my agenda, but I'm sure in dialogue we can see, okay, we're on the same page with this, so that sounds like a good situation for us both. Or it don't work out and it's no love lost in the process.
Hmm. That's it, man. So before we get ready to wrap this up, and this has been one hell of a conversation. I definitely do appreciate you once again for taking the time and to build this dialogue with me here, and hopefully we can have more conversations like that, man. My door is always open to you, man. Anytime you want to come back. Um,
Oh, man,
okay, my fault, my bad. But what I was gonna ask you was, what's your outlook for 2025, and what do you see that will take place that is going to change the industry as we know it right now?
it's there's moments that I can find myself buried in the stuff that I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
where it doesn't give me true visibility into what's going on in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but there's times that I look at it, I look at it through the lens of my son. My son, he's 9 years old, and we just got him this MetaQuest, the glasses or whatever that
Mm-hmm.
the virtual reality or whatever. And I can't see what he's doing, right? So then I put it on myself, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, God, this is, you actually can, create this whole room and all this other stuff and all these different things, but you can go to so many different places now. It's like you got your sites, you got all this other stuff that you can look at, and I feel like, this is great in its own way, but I think that technology is really kind of, I wouldn't say spiraling out of control, but man, it's growing at a rate that there's gonna have to be some level of
Regulation.
containment in some way. Yeah, regulations to be able to try to figure out how to keep not a lid on it, but
Uh-huh.
just a way to be able to manage it in some way, shape, or form. So I think that this year, there's, I mean, even right now, I didn't even realize it for a while. Just going to Google, I'm like, man, what is this stuff that I'm seeing? And it's this, it's now you can see AI is being invoked on every little search that you do. So I think that there's going to be a much bigger growth of technology that is going to be a little more difficult to regulate. I even think with I don't know the true relationship between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, but um, you got somebody who's very, very interested in technology and its ways, and being able to grow it beyond its current existence. And then you got somebody who would want to say, if it wasn't for me, it wouldn't exist, kind of thing. So I
Right.
think that there's some ability to grow technology in a lot of different areas, and I don't think music is an exception to that.
Mm.
So it'll be curious to be able to see how all of that stuff kind of plays out, especially when now being able to create from scratch. Even you can ask all the questions you want about, did you generate this song with AI? I mean, it doesn't matter if you ask it or not, and somebody's response to it. So, and I'm talking about in reference to distributors and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, you're now. I think what we're gonna see is we're gonna see a plethora of music that's going to have. Uh, I'd probably say over 50% of AI ingredients to it that they're not going to have a way to be able to figure out the difference between one or the other without a way to regulate the technology.
Mm-hmm.
So even to some extent, there's some of the tools that we as producers can leverage. The technology can easily be masked, or masked within it, so that you wouldn't even know what part of it is AI or what part of it is not. So this year, to me, I think that there's definitely going to be a technology swing,
Mm-hmm.
and I would not be surprised if artists kind of fall back and just kind of watch this thing unfold. Because if it's leveraged by powerful individuals, or individuals that have the ability to take advantage of it, it is definitely going to be a scenario where artists are going to have to find another vehicle or another outlet that is going to be able to get their music heard and allow them to be able to do more than what they're doing today. And that includes um, shows like yours, being able to find the tangibles that you normally can't really get your hands on, and try to get your music out in those spaces that allow some sort of interaction. The other places, they just won't. They're not going to prove to be beneficial. So I do believe that technology is there's gonna be a jump, and we're all going to experience it, especially in the world of music.
Absolutely, man. That's definitely some very good insight and some very good take on the situation surrounding the music industry in 2025. And with that being said, man, I definitely want to say thank you, Detroit, man. I do appreciate you once again. This discussion has been great. I really learned a lot from it. I hope you was entertained and enjoyed this conversation as well. And before we wrap things up, I wanted to give you the floor once again, just to remind everybody out there, of any things you got going on, any projects you got coming out, or for anybody that hears this conversation and they want to reach out to you and work with you on some other things. How can they make that possible?
Yeah, so I'm heavy on X, only because it allows me to kind of stiff arm some things when it comes to information, but
Right.
also making myself somewhat accessible. So definitely reach out on me on X. My handle is Detroit Red, but instead of an E in the red, it's a three.
Mhm.
Uh, I have a ton of work that I'm doing. Still working on the Intrigue EP, and we got a Cuddle Season EP that we're also releasing.
Hmm.
And I got a Nigerian artist that I'm working with, so we're going to be putting out some of his music soon.
Nice.
Working with another young lady. She's just kind of really getting her songwriting chops together. So she's writing a couple of songs for another artist that I'm working with that's out of the Philippines. And
Hmm.
I recently started working with a young lady that's actually translating some of those songs and singing it in Mandarin. So
Oh wow.
it's the sky's the limit for me, man. I just that's the part about it that I'm really really enjoying, and to be able to say, yeah, I just produced a song in Mandarin. It's not necessarily just that, but it's something that I've always kind of sought out to do. So just being able to expand on all of those different things. So I'm just looking at all of the music that's kind of sitting in this catalog I got, and you know I don't think I can produce it, or get it prepped up fast enough. But in the meantime, that's just what I'm gonna keep on doing. I'm gonna just keep pushing out the work that I'm doing with Jamaica as well, and Intrigue is just gonna be, the pieces are just kind of falling into place,
Mhm.
and alongside that, Introspect and I, another fellow producer, we released the EP last year, so we're going to release the follow up this
Mhm.
year, and from there, I mean, I'm I love collaborating because I learn so much from different people. That's me, man. I'm a sponge. I really enjoy different aspects of how people go about different things, and being able to incorporate that into my own sound, and just continue to expand uh, my reach in terms of being able to get in touch with different artists, different producers or whatnot. Um, my email, DetroitRedOfficial@gmail.com. Um, I don't like to say it in a way where I'm being boastful about it, but the truth of the matter is that I'm not a hard person to find. I'm just not. So um, just just find me however you see fit. Just so you can search Detroit Red. I mean, I'm into a lot of different things now, and uh, I just think that that music is, it's just one of those things for me that it's like it's always been the soundtrack of my life, and not only that, it's been a way of communication when I didn't necessarily have the words. So I hope that artists can continue to build on those types of things that they're trying to do, and the people that they're trying to reach, and just continue to pull at the emotional strings of the individuals that they're trying to reach.
Mhm.
And I think with that, that's what we're gifted to be able to do. So I do wish everybody the best in their journey, in their musical journey, and if it turns into something else for them, I wish them the best in that regard as well.
Absolutely, man. And we wish you the best, man. We looking forward to hearing the work that you guys are putting out. Like I said earlier, man, yeah, you got some incredible artists that you're working with right now. And I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more of the music that you guys put out, man. So I definitely want to say thank you once again. I do appreciate you and your time and all that good stuff. And to everybody else out there right now that's tuned in, I want to say thank you as well. And be sure to follow us, hit us up on social media all over the place at the EMillio EgBar Show. Hit me up on my personal Twitter at the EMillio EgBar. And also be sure to check out more of us on our YouTube channel at the EMillio EgBar Show. Check us out Friday nights, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, streaming live on Twitch and Twitter. You already know what it is, folks. And then until next episode, y'all be good out there, y'all heard? Peace.